Okay, looks like we're live now. We'll wait just a couple minutes to get the buffer moving here. Make sure everybody's on the same page. Okay, looks like we're ready to roll. Dr. Swab, it is all yours.
Great, and it's 6:30, so I'd like to welcome everyone to the Radford-Vincent Village Board of Education special session, and if we all could stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Dr. Swab. Mrs. Brewer.
Here.
Pastor Reindl.
Here.
Mr. Giesecker.
Here.
Mr. Beller.
Here. I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening for our virtual meeting. And we're doing the virtual meeting during the state of emergency as we recognize in our April meeting. Tonight's agenda will be review the superintendent's plan for the restart of our district. We'll approve the revised school calendar and take public participation. So our next item is adoption of our agenda. Do we have any additions or deletions to the printed agenda that we have? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as printed?
I so move.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call for approval.
Mrs. Brewer.
Yes.
Pastor Reindl.
Yes.
Mr. Giesecker.
Yes.
Mr. Beller.
Yes.
Dr. Swab.
Yes. At this point of the meeting, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Hertz for our administrative reports and the restart plan.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Swab. I appreciate it. And I'd like to start off with just a few notes here. If anyone is wanting to participate in this afternoon's or evening's meeting, you are welcome to use the YouTube chat feature in your YouTube account, or you are welcome to email me at jhurst@bradford.k12.oh.us. So I am going to share with you our restart program. And I would like to thank everybody that had an input with this. We had a staff group of approximately 16 people that helped out with this to give me input on what the decisions were to make sure that we were going in the right direction. Of course, we were listening to our guidance from our governor, our health department in Darke County, the Ohio Department of Education, of course, we talked to our insurance agents and our attorneys, but hopefully we're, like I said, heading in the right direction here. So further ado, I've basically copied and pasted everything into slides here with a few notes. The process for this whole thing is tonight we're going to discuss it. The potential at this point is we're going to vote on it Monday next week at our regular board meeting. It is actually something that we've removed off of tonight's board meeting agenda for the simple fact that Governor DeWine had an announcement today that will change potentially our mask policy. So we want to make sure that we're seeing that in writing before we make any major changes. We want to make sure everything's lined up with what our county officials are wanting us to do, and make sure that we're on the right page before we have an actual approved piece. The first part of this is our calendar. And our calendar originally started with students on August 26th of 2020. That was adopted clear back in February and all set with that. Since then, obviously, we've had many changes, and our local health director has come out and asked our schools to have a start date of the day after Labor Day, which is September 8th. So I think at this point, all of the Darke County schools are going to be able to do that. I know that that's my recommendation, and that's going to be an agenda item for this evening. The reasons for this is to separate the groups of our students in the school and the kids that are walking around the fair. Now, obviously, since the fair has changed now, that group is much, much smaller than it was. But they will still be able to separate those two groups into separate entities instead of two groups of people intermixing and making one big group. Obviously, the next piece of that is to identify any COVID cases or potential COVID cases before they come to the school and possibly spread within our building. So the plan itself, we were planning on, and we still would like to operate as much or as close to normal as what we possibly can. We worked through the ESCs, we worked through the health department, so on and so forth, and the health department will have final say on whether this plan is acceptable or not. And it has been submitted to them, but we haven't had the final response of yes, everything's okay. We have two different options in our plan. In fact, there's three if you really look at it close. Option one is operating as close to normal as we can, and I'll go through the elementary and high school plans with our principals here in just a little bit. But realistically, they've done a great job of separating our kids into smaller classrooms, so we have a higher distance between each of the kids and create that social distancing that we've heard so much about. If a student or teacher, in fact, has certain symptoms, here's a list of how that should be handled. And basically, if anybody has a temperature of 100 degrees or more, they're supposed to stay home. If they have a cough, a shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, any of the following pieces that are on here, any of those symptoms, there's different levels of severity with those and different levels of isolation or quarantine after that. So check that out. It's on our website. You are more than welcome to visit that at any point and see the exact same information. This is also straight from our health department in Darke County. And since we are on the west side of 721, all of our health department needs are answered through the Darke County Health Department. If a student has an illness and are coming back, here's the quarantine methods. Basically, it says 3 days with no fever, and that's without any medication. And then if there are absolute symptoms that have appeared, you have to go from 10 days after that first appeared, and then those other qualifiers on top of that with 3 days with no fever, so on and so forth. Expectations of our teachers and staff. This was given a long time ago where we were going to try to keep that 6 feet in between of each of the students and the teacher. Each of them would have at least a face shield to be able to wear in class, so there would be a barrier between them and the students. And at the same time, as long as there was a 6 foot distance in between, there wouldn't be as big of a need for those face coverings. Visitors and volunteers. These are unfortunately something that we are going to minimize as much as possible. And we've got a very great group of volunteers that have come in and helped our school and our kids almost every day for many, many years. It's one of those situations we're trying to minimize any risk that we can have, and to have less people in the building would mean less exposure. So we're going to minimize as much as we can with our volunteers and visitors to the building. Protective measures. The paragraph you see there in front of you is directly from our restart program. The bullets at the bottom are basically the high points of this paragraph. Skip has done a great job of putting hand sanitizing stations in each one of our classrooms. Our teachers are going to ask our students to wash their hands on a regular basis. That obviously is going to ramp up. Facial coverings, since it is we had it as a mandate between classes and on the bus. Now it looks like it might be a little bit more widespread than that. We'll see, like I said, how the order comes from Governor DeWine here, but we will have some facial coverings here for our kids. We'd like them to bring their own, as prominent as facial coverings are. Hopefully that doesn't become a problem, but we have ordered facial coverings for every student here in the building to be able to use if there is an emergency or a need. We are also, we have some barriers that have been ordered. We have some barriers that are being built for each of the classrooms. So if there is a situation where we have students congregating in one area for a group exercise, we're going to be able to put them in basically the equivalent of a testing bubble, and be able to have walls, glass, plastic walls on each side of them, 3 sides of them, to be able to create one more barrier between them and the students next to them. And then the piece that we didn't add in the health department proposal was upgrading our air filter system. In our school here, we have 10 air handler units in our building, and we have had MERV 8 filters in there. And basically what that means is that it would take out about 65% of the filtration of any dust mites or anything that's in the air going through those filters. We have upgraded in each of those 10 air handlers to a MERV 13 filter system, which is going to give us 85% filtration rate. It's more equivalent to what you would consider a HEPA filter, but it's supposed to take out lint, household dust, pollen, dust mites, mold spores, pet dander, smoke, smog, cough and sneezes, bacteria, and virus carriers. So hopefully that will at least reduce a little bit of the airborne issues that we've been reading about as well. So what's it look like during lunch? And maybe I should talk about breakfast just a little bit before, but breakfast, students will be eating in the cafeteria. We only have about 100 to 140 students each day eating breakfast with us. So there's enough space in our cafeteria to be able to spread those students out without worrying about so much social distancing. Lunch, on the other hand, we have bigger groups coming to the cafeteria. So we have, there's a couple different barriers here that we've tried to overcome. Each day when the students come through, they would enter their 5-digit code into the school lunch account. I think it's a 5-digit code. It may be 6. But we have ordered scanners, and we are making cards like this, and I don't know if you can see this online, but this is a card, an example. Basically, for each of the students, we'll have a barcode to be able to hold underneath that scanner, and it'll automatically pick up that student's name and enter it through the POS system there at the kitchen, point of sale system. This will also be available through a student's cell phone. So those students that would have cell phones with them during the school day, they could download that same barcode and be able to use that through the school system scanner as well. Students will go through the cafeteria and the kitchen to pick up their lunches. Junior high, high school students will eat there in the cafeteria and be spread out. Elementary students will get their lunches and then take those back to their individual classrooms to eat. One thing that we are asking parents to think about is to send in checks or use a credit card to pay online for your students' accounts and dump money into that, so we are minimizing the amount of cash that flows from one person to the other in our cafeteria. What's the look on a bus? We are going to try to find a way. In fact, we found ways, we haven't finalized yet, but we will have students get their temperatures as they get on the bus each morning. If that temperature is 100 degrees or more, we're going to ask that student to go back home at that point. Of course, that's only if a parent is right there ready and close, but if a bus stop is the place that that student is picked up, obviously that would create some more issues where we would just keep the student on the bus and then get them to school and then have the student be picked up here from school. We will have assigned seats for our school students. They will sit in the back of the bus first, so there's a minimal contact with people in front of them, and then they will sit in groups whom they've been associated with. So any siblings would sit in the same seat, and then they would start from the back to the way forward. We do the same thing with households or family members, or even common babysitting places where we try to group those students all together. The original piece was this was a place that we would not be able to accommodate social distancing, so face masks would be required on a school bus at that point. And of course, all this is subject to change with the expected orders coming out of the governor's office this afternoon. Supplies and equipment, we're asking everybody to keep sharing to a minimum. So basically, if there's a way to give enough pens and pencils and paper and those type of things to students where they don't have to share in class, that's our goal. Our art teacher has ordered additional paintbrushes so we wouldn't have to share from student to student. Our recess equipment, students will have each classroom will have additional equipment to be able to play with those balls and jump ropes and things like that without having to share those pieces of equipment. Class transitions, this was another place in the high school where we weren't going to be able to minimize or extend that social distancing. So this was another place we were going to ask students to wear masks. It would be the same in the, most likely in the elementary when they were transitioning from, say, class down to art or gym or music. So those are places that we would definitely need to have masks for our students. Field trips and assemblies, unfortunately, we don't want mass gatherings in our building to be able to have one student intermix with others when it's not needed. So field trips and assemblies are going to be kept to a minimum, if not eliminated, through the period of this COVID pandemic. Now, I've got both principals online here with us in this meeting, so I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Triplett to talk about the junior high and high school plans and what it looks like for one of those students to come to school on any given day during this change.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hurst. Currently, the plan we have laid out is students will follow an orange and black schedule every other day. An orange schedule consists of periods 1 through 4, and a black schedule consists of periods 5 through 8. Class periods will be approximately 80 minutes long, and class sizes will be capped at 15 students per classroom. Any class with over 15 students will have students moved to an overflow classroom where they will learn remotely, or move to a larger space to keep students socially distanced wherever possible. This would happen maybe in science. If he takes them outside, we wouldn't cap them at 15 if they could keep 6 foot apart. Students will be released to go home at 2:20 each day until restrictions are lifted or any other mandates or orders, and a normal schedule of 8:10 to 3:10 will be put back into place. Students who may need to stay after 3:10, it should say 2:20, will be placed in a study hall at the end of the day. So if there's a junior high athletics going on, that junior high student can't go home or can't get a ride home, they can stay at the building, and we'll place them in a study hall so they can make it to practice on time. Again, we're going to try to be as flexible as possible and make it easy for the students. And as Mr. Hurst said, with the orders coming down today, the mask mandate, at first we were not going to have students wearing masks in the classrooms, but it looks like there's a possibility of that now. So I will turn it over to Mrs. Levy for the elementary plan.
Thank you. So what I tried to do, and we as the team worked on, was to make sure that everyone in the elementary, the students will be self-contained classrooms. They won't be switching up from grades 3 through 5. They'll have one homeroom teacher that they stay with for all curriculum except for their specials. Students will be asked to wear face masks in common areas. That's what the plan was. Now that we have the mandate from the governor, we'll be reassessing that to see what that is going to have to look like. It is a bit disheartening knowing that mandate is out there just because kids at this age need to be able to see each other's mouths, but we have to do what's safe and makes everybody stay healthy. Students will transition to special classes such as art, gym, and music with extra time for teachers to disinfect, as well as support teachers, Title I, or special education services. So the only time the kids will be out of the their regular classroom will be when they transition to those and getting their lunches, and then they'll be back in the classroom, hoping to watch contact tracing, so we can kind of keep an eye on who they've been around. They'll eat their lunches in the classroom. There'll be a recess right after the lunch. Right now it'll be in the classroom, but then later on in the day or earlier in the day, students will take an additional outside recess with their class, and the times will be determined by their homeroom teachers. There's a schedule out there so that they also get an outside recess during the day. Like I said, students will be left in their self-contained classroom until dismissal occurs as well. We will not be releasing early. We will be going till 3:10. So that is different than what the high school is doing. When we release, we'll be releasing by groups, whether it be walkers, bus riders, and then car pickups from their classrooms. If one of our counties gets red, then special classrooms will come to the classroom for instruction, and it'll be the only time that we would even think about doing that. And that wraps up the elementary plan.
Okay, now can you hear me? All right, very good. Well, I wanted to make sure that everybody was included here. I guess I get talking sometimes and don't realize my microphone was muted, so I apologize for that. But if you do have questions, please use that YouTube chat or email me again at jhurst@bradford.k12.oh.us. I do have a couple questions here. I have one on the YouTube chat that I will answer here in just a little bit. So anyways, as we go through these different pieces here, there is an additional piece that we haven't really discussed a lot in very much detail. Those students with special circumstances that would need to be away from other students, we do have an option for online curriculum. This is not something that is recommended for every student. This is not something that is going to be a platform where students are going to be successful in every situation. So we want to make sure that we're selective. We want to make sure that students and parents know what they're getting into before they get to this point of signing up for this online feature. It will not be with our teachers directly. It will be with the curriculum where the student is basically learning with the help basically on their own with a little bit of help from their parents. So it is a very self-driven option for some students. If you are interested in this, please talk to your principal. Both principals, or all three principals, have been fully aware of what's going on here. We are still working through some of the details. We don't have all sorted out yet. We have two options that are still on the table that we're working through, and both of them seem very appealing. But like I said, it is not going to be the same as what was offered last school year when we all went remote. This is something that is a little bit more not attached to our teachers in our school district here, but anybody in this option would still be a Bradford student. They would still be able to participate in our extracurriculars. If somebody is wanting to do a co-curricular activity such as band, we would have to make special arrangements to make that all work. This is something that somebody's not going to be able to just commit to and then come back and go to and come back. It's going to be something that is going to be provided as a commitment of a semester long at least. So keep that in mind. It's not going to be something that you should take half-heartedly. It's something that's going to be a full commitment for at least 2 9-week periods. I think I hit everything on my notes there, but like I said, if you have questions, please contact me for that, or you can contact either of you. For this one specifically, please contact your principals, and they will be able to help you out with a lot of those questions.
Can I say something real quick?
Sure.
The virtual piece, if you decide to do the virtual platform, I really hope that you give it great, and I know it's a scary time, but please think about the amount of time that you have to, at the elementary level, be reading to your child what they're supposed to be doing and what has to take place. It is not, like Mr. Hurst said, going to be like the spring. It will be a lot of self-driven by you and your child. So think about that as you're trying to weigh what's best for your situation. I don't want to set anyone up for a semester that may not have been what you were wanting to have happen. So please do reach out to us so we can answer questions and help you better understand what the virtual piece will look like.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. One thing that I did want to talk about, we have talked about how it's going to look here in the school building and what it's going to be like as we have our students walking through the halls each day. Last March, everybody was probably as surprised as I was when we were told we were going home to learn for the rest of the year. We are still having those discussions. If we have to push the button and make sure that we do have the platforms ready to go in case we are going to have a remote learning platform like we did last spring. We are putting a lot more professional development. Of course, our teachers have some experience with it now. We've learned from our experiences, and basically, I think we're going to be able to do a better job of it, even as good a job as I think we've been able to do last year. If our counties, either Miami or Darke, turns into a purple county, where you're definitely going to be remote learning at that point. My expectation is that we'll even bleed down into a red county. So if we have Miami or Darke County in a red situation, according to our governor's stipulations there, if it is classified as red or purple, I would imagine we will still be at the point of going remote learning even then. We will have common platforms this year. I know one of the things that we learned from our surveys that went out to the community was it was very difficult for parents and students to go from one platform to another. So we are doing some extensive professional development before school starts on class setups for Class Dojo and Google Classrooms or Google Meets. Those will be the two platforms that we use for not only the classroom piece, but communication on top of that. There is the potential of one more platform being added to that, but realistically, I'm not sure that's going to be much more than what just a variation of the Google Meets. So that being said, we do have methods for people to ask questions. And again, if anybody has questions, they're welcome to email me. My name's Joe Hurst. I'm the superintendent here. And of course, the principals, both the elementary and the high school principals, are there on the screen, and along with our athletic director and transportation coordinator, Chloe Schell, who is now Chloe Thompson. She's been married. I did get two questions through our YouTube chat. First one is, are we going back September 8th? You will know the answer to that one here in just a little bit. That is the sole motion on tonight's agenda. So if the school board will adopt that, we will start school on September 8th. We will have breaks for Thanksgiving, Christmas, just like we always do, President's Day, all those holidays. The end date, if that is not changed and it's passed the way it is, the end date will be extended a little bit to June 3rd. So it'd be the Thursday after Memorial Day would be our last day of school with students. Assuming this is passed tonight, this will be put on our website either tonight or tomorrow, so people can check that out and see what that looks like, but we will put that up as soon as possible. The second question I got from our YouTube chat is, are you still providing buses for students on IPs? Absolutely. We have a secondary school bus that goes through, I'm assuming this relates to the school bus that goes through town after our students are dropped off to pick up a few students. That will still be available. Nothing has changed with our bus routes that way, and we expect to be able to pick everybody up just as normal. They'll just have to wear face masks. So that being said, I'm looking at my email. I don't see anything new. Mr. Daugherty, do you have anything through YouTube I need to discuss? Okay. With that in mind, then, I think my presentation is done, and I will hand the microphone back to Dr. Schwab.
Thanks, Mr. Hurst. Does any of the board members have questions regarding Mr. Hurst's presentation on the restart plan? You must have did a very good job. Everybody understands the philosophy. And so the participation component has already been completed. You did that during your restart plan presentation. The next item on our agenda is the recommendation of the superintendent to approve the revised 2020-2021 school calendar. Do I have a motion to accept that recommendation? In a second, please.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mike. Any discussions or presentation or clarification regarding the school calendar change?
Yes, I have questions on it. I understand that can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. So I understand that Darke County wants us to wait till after the fair, but we have less than 20 students, around somewhere near 20 students that are going to be participating in the fair. That's not really the fair. And they're only going to be presenting like in front of, they're social distancing, they're wearing masks, they're not in big groups, there's not going to be a midway open for them, they're not going to have concessions, things like that. So we're trying to change our whole school schedule forward advanced 8 days to accommodate less than 20 students that are social distancing and showing animals or whatever they are doing at the fair. But we have football players, a group of 30 or more, that are not social distancing, tackling in huddles, doing whatever they do without mask on, and we're not postponing school till after football's out. I just think it's a double standard for us to postpone school that far just for fair kids who aren't really having a fair. And we're going to be missing some parent-teacher conferences. There are things that are very important that I just think we're postponing all of this that far. So I listened to the governor today, and he said he's letting schools make up their own mind. I know he's making us wear masks, but other decisions when starting school, if you're doing online, if you're not doing online, when you start, whatever, should be left up to the school. I just hate that they're wanting us, who were the only Darke County school that was going during the fair, to change our, voted on district calendar just for that. So I just don't think it's a good idea to start a couple weeks later than we were normally starting. I don't think it's helping anyone by starting that late.
Do you have any comments on that as far as what is the Miami County schools doing?
Many of the Miami County schools, in fact, I've got a chart here. I can, I don't know if I can pull it up or not and show everybody this one. I don't think it's available for that. But many of the Miami County schools are sticking with their normal dates in late August. There are a number of them, though. I think, see, I'm looking right now. I've got Milton Union has moved theirs to the same date of September 8th. Piqua is going to be starting September 8th. Troy is starting September 8th. And Tip City moved theirs from the 20th to the 31st. So they moved theirs later, but not completely as late as what we have.
Right. And then Upper Valley starting in August as well. So our students that are going to Upper Valley are going to be around a whole group of students more than the fair students. And then they will also come back and play sports, which is without mask, with large groups of people. So I just don't think postponing everything just till the end of the fair is the solution to the problem.
And I would agree. I don't think it's a solution to the problem. I would think it's a potential help to solve some of the problem. And I'll be honest with you, when this was first proposed to me, I was adamantly against it. After I talked with Doc Coleman over at the health department, he made a lot of sense in how we would have that distance between the two groups. And at the time, obviously, the fair looked very different than what it's going to look like now. But it made a lot of sense at the time. I still think it's a good idea. I think it's going to give us a little bit of time between when mandates come out from the state and when we get students into the school. I think we're going to know a little bit more, and it's going to cause less yo-yo effect of students starting one way and then changing a week or two later. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I think that's just the way it's going to be at this point. So.
Yeah, I agree with you regarding the motivation to just change to match the Darke County calendar regarding to the Darke County Fair. But I think there's really more to it. I think if you look at the anticipated Midwest spread of the virus, and if you look at the current rise that we were experiencing in the initiation of the that I think allows to see if community spread is continuing to accelerate and whether the measures are appropriate or inappropriate, because you could very well see a continued rise in cases or our county is changing color in that period of time, and we may not even be able to start from a physical side and be completely remote. I think there's more variables than just convenience for the fair. I would agree that doesn't impact but a very small fraction of students. But you did make a very good point that I think Joe probably needs to talk to the Darke County Health Department, is that if we have students that now are part of a different community, i.e. they're in the career center, and now you have invoked a whole other community interaction, I'm not sure what that looks like. So you probably need to find out with athletics what the health department's position is with career centers and students participating in other districts, because the governor's direction is to limit community interactions, and so that may be something that needs to be vetted out a little bit better.
Yes, and just like with football, I mean, it's a contact sport, so they're playing. Of course, they're going to be tackling. They're going to be everybody piled on top of each other. So to me, that's way more chances of the virus spreading than there are at the fair when these kids are social distancing and they can't be in an arena with other kids. They have to be 6 feet apart. They have to wear a mask, so they're way less chances of getting it at the fair in the environment that they've got set up for them than there is our football practice and volleyball practice. So we're changing everything for like fair kids, but then we have the career center kids and the athletes that it's just very double standard, I think.
I think your point's well taken. The career center and athletics have to be vetted with the health department a little more. I'm not sure that's an area where they've considered it. But I think when you look at the whole idea with contact sports, it is to allow limit external community exposures. So if you're allowing contact sports with students within your community, as opposed to contact sports with students outside your community, it just ripples the potential for outside exposure going into your community. So when you look at kids going to the career center and then coming back and doing contact sports, I'm not sure that we need to find out what the health department's feelings are regarding that, because that's kind of the reason you see the limit in to just scrimmages and staying within your community, not allowing you to play students from Covington or other districts, is because those other districts now ripple to more exposures. One person, when you're exposed to them, you're exposed to everybody they were exposed to. So as you broaden that population, you tend to increase your risk as the prevalence of disease increases.
Right, but our football team is going to be playing other teams. Our volleyball team is going to be playing other teams. So I just don't understand. I mean, we are going to be playing other towns.
Well, I think that's yet to be determined by the governor. From the way I read the last order, our non-contact sports are to continue, and they may potentially place students from other districts. Contact sports, the way the current order that was signed on August 1st states that any contact sport will not allow competitions between districts or schools. So that would include basketball, for us, basketball and football. And that order continues until the emergency has been rescinded or until there's new orders. So as it sets today, I don't think there's clarity for the football players playing other schools the way it looks until we have more clarity from the governor.
Today, when I listened to the governor, he said that the order does not pertain to high school sports. Like people were saying, so they got 60,000 signatures to let us play high school sports and all this, but the governor said, his assistant said today that that does not pertain to high school sports. It's just kind of a rumor that's going around that people are saying that order pertains to, and it doesn't. So he's saying that they got all these 50,000 signatures to make it not pertain to that, but he said it does not pertain to high school sports. So as of John Husted today saying he still plans on having football and having all of these sports. So I just think I don't know. I love the fair. I think it's great that the students participate in the fair, but I don't think we should push our schedule ahead a couple weeks and, take away things like parent-teacher conferences or things, days that we normally would use for in-services or parent-teacher conferences or other things just to accommodate that when it's still happening within our district. Our kids are still going with other kids. They're still going to be competing against other students. They're still going to be going, over half of our students, probably 3/4 of our juniors and seniors go to the Career Center. So, and then a lot of them are athletes coming back. So I just think we're doing what they don't want us to do in other ways. So I just don't think postponing the school year is going to help.
Yeah, I hear your point, but I don't think all those answers are completely vetted out at the moment. I think for us to make a decision when we start, it makes more sense to move it later till we see what happens than to have it earlier and wish we would have been later. I think right now it's just different times. And when it comes to the athletics and it comes to all of other decisions, we're going to have to wait to see what actually transpires when we actually get there. It's really not clear what's going to be mandated.
True.
Any other comments regarding the recommendation for the calendar change? Hearing none, roll call for approval.
Mrs. Brewer,
No.
Pastor Rindle,
Yes. Can't hear you.
Mr. Beaver,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Dr. Swab,
Yes. Next, we have no further items on our agenda this evening. I'd like to thank everybody for their time. And we have a motion for adjournment, please.
I'll move.
Thank you, Scott.
I'll second.
Pastor Randall, thank you. Roll call for approval.
Mrs. Brewer,
Yes.
Pastor Rindle,
Yes.
Mr. Beesecker,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Dr. Swab.
Yes. Thank you very much. Stand adjourned. Thank everybody for their time. Have a great day.
Before everybody logs off here real quick, I did have 2 extra questions that came in concerning our restart program. So I'm just going to throw those out there real quick, if that's okay.
Yep.
Okay. One comment was made, hope they won't be over sanitizing with harsh chemicals. Everything that we've got, in fact, the newest chemicals that we have to disinfect chairs and desks and everything that we've got out there is supposed to be sanitary enough you can eat off of it as soon as it's put on. So it hopefully will be no problems there. The other question I got after the fact was if one of our siblings shows signs of COVID, do all the siblings have to quarantine? We're going to follow the CDC guidelines. Right now, we would leave that contact tracing back to the Darke County Health Department to go through and determine what students, what people, what family members, what friends, what elbow partners would have to quarantine. I'll leave that up to them. But the way they explained it to me earlier was that those people that have been within 6 feet of any person that was infected for more than 15 minutes would need to at least be on a watch list. And that watch list would be an isolation period or a quarantine, if you want to call it that, for any certain number of days, whether it's 10 or 14 days. So the answer to that is yes, most likely they would probably be identified as a quarantine person. However, that will probably not be my call to make. It won't be anybody here at the school. It will go through the health department to police that piece. And then I just got another one. What is an acceptable mask? Is a gaiter, a face shield, a medical cloth? What is the actual definition of a mask? If you even listen to the governor today, he left it very, very broad as far as what a face covering is. My thought process is, in fact, I'll show you mine right here. This is my face mask that my wife made. This is something I will wear regularly. I also have one behind me that was made by a family member, my mother. That is an Ohio State mask, so it's a way to show a little personality. So those are fine. We have gaiters actually ordered, they've also been called buffs. They've been called handkerchiefs, but something that goes around your neck and then you pull it up over your face. Those are acceptable as well. The medical looking masks are fine, obviously. If you have access to an N95, that's wonderful, but those are kind of hard to find these days. So anyways, yes, do your research to figure out what kind of mask you'd like to bring or what is acceptable to you. There's obviously different levels of safety with each one of them, but you are welcome to bring in what you would like there within, of course, reason. I don't want something that would be against our dress code or something that would be a distraction to everybody else. So there may be some stipulations there. I know we've got one more question coming to me here very shortly. So as soon as that gets here and we get untangled.
Yes. I just want to add that the governor said today too that he's sending masks to every school district. So he's planning on sending lots of masks out. So I think we'll have more available.
Okay. That'd be great. And we actually just got a shipment of masks from the Bureau of Workers' Compensation here this week too, that will help to that pile as well. The last question I think that we have, unless something else pops up while I'm answering this, do we have the choice of remote teaching our kids? Wearing a mask for eight hours seems like a bad idea. Yes, that is the piece there we talked about with the remote learning or the online piece that parents will have the option to use for their students, their children. But like I said, it is not an easy piece. It's not something to take lightly and make that choice. I would suggest if you're interested in that, please talk to your principal in the next few days to find out what the structure really looks like. It is truly not for every person. If you've ever taken online courses, it is a very different environment than doing it in person. It takes a special personality. It takes a special self-driven motivation to be able to get through an online course and do it correctly and do it successfully. So yes, it's an option. However, it's not something that I'm going to recommend for every student. So you know your kids better than I do. By all means, if you have that as a possibility or a focus at this point, get some answers and then make an educated decision, and we'll go from there. Okay, with that, I think we're done with our questions. I appreciate everybody's time. I'm sorry to talk so much tonight, but please reach out to me if you have questions about any of our restart options. We will probably have this restart plan on the next board meeting, which would be Monday next week on the 10th. So with that, I will be quiet. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate everybody's time. Thank you. We stand adjourned.
Hey, Carla. I couldn't hardly hear you when you talked. Still can't hear you. Oh. You talked to it was like your mic wasn't on. Now it isn't on at all.
Your light's red.
I had it blue.
Now